Here we're going to talk about one side of the market, the demand side. So first, a definition: quantity demanded. Quantity demanded is the amount of a good that buyers are willing and able to purchase at the current price. Each of those two, willing and able, is important, right? Just because you want it doesn't mean you can have it. This is the idea of scarcity. If we were in a class together, face to face, I would give you a sheet of paper with this table on it, and I'd ask you to fill it out. At each of these prices for Snickers bars, how many Snickers bars would you buy? And then we'd look at them. You can go ahead and you can pause the video and think about your answers all the way down this table. And different people across the classroom would have different answers, different numbers in each of these rows of this table, because different people have different willingness and ability to purchase Snickers bars at different prices. So different people like Snickers bars more. Some people may hate them and don't want any, doesn't matter how cheap they are. Some people love them and we're willing to pay a lot for them, right? But one thing that we would always see across the board, no matter who you are, no matter how much you do or don't like Snickers bars, is that we would see this relationship, the law of demand. The law of demand says, all else equal, there is an inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Inverse being a mathy word that just means the two go in opposite directions. So if price goes up, the quantity demanded, how much you're willing and able to purchase, is going to go down. And if price goes down, quantity demanded is going to go up. So regardless of how many Snickers bars you want at $2, you're always going to want more at $2 than you would want at $5. That's the law of demand. The table we just looked at, the table that shows the relationship between price and quantity demanded, that's called a demand schedule. And if we were to graph that table, it's a demand curve. So a graph of the relationship between price and quantity demanded. Here's another example, not just our Snickers bar example, but here's a table for some prices and the number demanded by The Rock of healing crystals, right? So a couple of things to notice here. The higher the price, the lower the quantity demanded, and the lower the price, the higher the quantity demanded. That's the law of demand, this relationship that you'll see here. Now, this is a demand schedule, the table that just shows price, quantity, price, quantity, price, quantity, right? If we were to graph each of these, so if we did something like this, where we put the price on a vertical axis and the quantity on a horizontal axis, and we put a point at each of those lines in the table, right? So at $20, we'd have a point at 0 crystals, $5, a point at 6 crystals, $0, 8 crystals, right? You can follow that down all the way down here. And when we graph that, we draw that out on this graph with price on the vertical axis, quantity on the horizontal axis. This is a demand curve. A demand curve will always be downward sloping because of the law of demand. Because whenever there is an increase in price, there's a decrease in the quantity of the product or service that's demanded. Now, that's an individual's demand. That was The Rock's demand for those crystals. But if you were coming into a classroom trying to sell Snickers bars, it doesn't really matter how much student A wants Snickers bars. What you really care about is how many Snickers bars can you sell to the whole class. And that's the idea of market demand. So market demand is just the sum of everybody's demand at each price. So the horizontal sum, we throw the word horizontal in here to make it clear that we're talking about at each price you add the quantities, not the other way around. Don't try to add the prices at each quantity. That would give you some nonsense. So the horizontal sum of all the individual quantities demanded by each buyer in the market at each price. And this is really a pretty simple concept. If you've got a demand schedule for The Rock and you've got a demand schedule for Emma, Notice that their demand schedules are different. They have different preferences for healing crystals, but we do see the law of demand for each of them. We see that as the price goes down, the quantity that they demand goes up. And if we want to know the market demand, we just add across the rows, right? So the market demand at $20 is 0 plus 0 equals 0, right? The market demand at $15 is the rock wants 2, Emma wants 1, so the market demand is 3, right? So we just take the horizontal sum of the quantities demanded. Now, some things can happen that would make your demand for a product or a service, healing crystals or Snickers bars, change, right? One of those things is the price could change, right? So if you look at a demand schedule like we're looking at here, we're looking at the Rock's demand schedule and also Emma's demand schedule. If the price goes from $15 to $10, what happens? The quantity you demand, so let's zero in on the Rock's demand schedule. If the price goes from 15 to 10, the quantity he demands is going to go from 2 to 4, right? Notice, all we did there is we moved down in the table. The table itself did not change. The demand schedule did not change. Demand did not change. What did change is quantity demanded, right? So this is a change in quantity demand. Change in quantity demand is a movement along the demand curve or a movement in that table, right? You just move from one row to another in the table or from one point on the curve to another, and this is caused by a change in the price of the good. If all that changes is the price, then nothing about your table changes. You just go back to the table and you look at where you moved. You moved from this price to that price, therefore you moved from this quantity to that quantity, right? So you just move to a different point on the same demand curve or in the same demand schedule. A change in demand, on the other hand. So these two terms are they sound a lot alike, but there is a difference between quantity demanded and demand, okay? So demand is a word that we use to describe this whole table, right? So quantity demanded is one spot on the table. At $12.50, what's your quantity demanded? 3, right? That's quantity demanded, one spot on the table. Demand, your demand or the Rock's demand for healing crystals is the whole table. Or if we had a graph, it's the whole line, the whole curve that we've drawn on the graph, right? So a change in demand would be something that causes this whole picture here to change, right? A change in quantity demanded is just, hey, the price changed, so we're moving from one spot to another on the picture. The picture itself didn't change. A change in demand would be a shift or a change in the whole table or a shift in the whole curve if we're thinking about the graph of this table. And what causes that to happen is something other than price changing. So if the only thing that changed was price, then the only thing that's going to change is your quantity demanded. You're just moving from one spot to another on the table you've already filled out, right? But if I told you, so if we're thinking about your Snickers bar table, right? If I told you that, if I had you fill it out when you first came into class, and then I read to you a study that came out that said Snickers bars cure cancer. Now what are you going to do? You're going to go back with your eraser, you're going to erase everything on your table, and you're going to change all those numbers, right? You're not just going to move from one spot on your table to another. Now, it doesn't matter if they cost $5. Used to, you didn't want any at $5, right? Now that they cure cancer, you'll take some, even if they're $5. Your entire preference for, your entire demand for Snickers bars has now changed because of some new information, because of something that happened other than just a price change that changes your entire demand schedule or shifts your entire demand curve. So you're going to see different demand curves moving either to the left or to the right. That particular example would be a rightward shift where your demand would increase. So you can think about like a number line. Left is down and right is up. So if Snickers bars cure cancer, it's going to cause the demand curve for Snickers bars to move to the right. You're going to have an increase in your demand for Snickers bars everywhere. So these two sound very similar, quantity demanded versus demand, but it's really important that you grasp that there is a difference here to what we're talking about when we talk about the quantity demanded, which is just that 1 point, versus demand, which is your overall preference for the good or the service. So here are a couple of examples. Here's the market for Oreos, right? And if we're currently at point A, what is going to happen in this picture if the price of Oreos falls? Well, here's how the picture changes. We move from point A to point B. The curve itself doesn't change because this is just like our Snickers bar example. I walk in, you fill out your whole table, and then I say, okay, well, the price is $2.50, and you look at your table and you tell me how many you'll take, right? Well, now the price is $1.50. You look at your table, you tell me your new number, right? Nothing changed about your actual demand. Nothing changed about your table. All that changed was which line are we on the table? Which point are we on the graph? So we moved from point A to point B when the price of Oreos falls. We will move from a quantity demanded of 4 to now a quantity demanded of 5. Right? Here's another example. Movie tickets. Currently the price is $15 and our quantity demanded is 3. We'll take 3 movie tickets if the price is $15. What happens if the price of movie tickets increases? Well, we just move right on up that line, right? Now we just look back at our table and we move from one line to the next, one cell to the next cell in our table, right? Our overall, how much we love movie tickets doesn't change. It's just how much we're willing and able to purchase has changed because the price changed, right? So our quantity demanded goes from 3 to 2 because the price went from 15 to 20. This example, on the other hand, so let's look at, this is the market for cantaloupes, and notice we have a downward sloping demand curve here. That's the law of demand. And the current price is $5, and the current quantity demanded is $6. Right? What could happen to cause a decrease in demand? What could happen to make us go back, erase our entire table, and change how much we want cantaloupes? Well, one is maybe a health warning comes out that causes buyers to demand fewer cantaloupes. Maybe cantaloupes cause heart disease or something. I know that's a crazy example because of course they don't. But maybe cantaloupes cause heart disease, right? If that happens, then even if the price stays exactly the same, the price stays $5, right? But you want fewer. Your demand for cantaloupes has changed. The entire curve, the entire line there has shifted to the left because of something that changed other than just the price. We didn't just see a price change. We saw something else change. We also could see this line shift outward to the right. An increase in demand would happen if, for example, a medical study shows that eating cantaloupe lowers cholesterol. So now buyers are going to demand more cantaloupe, regardless of what the price is. Now we're going back, we're erasing our table, and we're changing those numbers. Never mind, let me rethink how many I want, right? Because I have new information. Something new has changed, other than just the price. So the key to remember here, let's go back a few slides. The key to remember here is that a change in quantity demanded happens when there is a change in price. If nothing changes except price, then nothing changes except quantity demanded. If something other than price changes, this is when we see a shift in the entire demand curve. This is when we see a shift in demand itself. And even if that ultimately means that the quantity you want changes as well, what spurred that, though, was that your entire table, your entire curve changed because of something other than price changing. So changes in non-price factors will cause a change in demand. Change in price will cause a change in quantity demanded.